How's it going, YouTube? Coming to you today with another video, and today what to bring to you is Striker. Now, this is the deck that's definitely had a rough time moving forward without Mystic Mine, and we've already seen the deck having a really hard time against Tier Limit, but let me tell you, I found a list that I feel very confident with. I think that it's very good, and we'll talk about why that is. We'll talk about a lot of the different card choices that we have available to us, and then also a brand new card that's really cool, and I built something really chaotic around it, so I hope that you enjoy that build as well. It's more of just a for fun build, but I think that it does have some promise as well, just because of the fact that going second with Striker is never a bad idea, and that's definitely what that build wants to do. So we have a couple different builds to show you today. I do hope that you enjoy this video. If you haven't already subscribed, definitely subscribe, because again, at 16,000 subscribers, we're giving away the Spellground. It's the Player's Choice collaboration. If you haven't already checked out my sponsors over Imperial Duelist, Dragon Shield, or Gem, definitely go ahead and do so. Without further ado, let's hop right on into the video. So the first card I want to talk about is going to be Clockwork Knight. I think this card's really cool, and this is essentially what the chaotic build is built around. This card's really cool. It makes everything a machine on the field. This card also, when it's in your graveyard, you can banish this from your grave, discard a card from your hand, then add a Earth Machine monster. So of course we can go ahead and search Regulus, which is really neat. I think this card's really cool for a number of reasons, and we'll talk about why that is once we get to the build. Talking about Metalfoes Fusion, I think this card is almost necessary in the deck now, because when your opponent is making you mill 5, you just really want to have something in your graveyard that you can just get to, right? You want something that's there that you can net some kind of value off of. I think that moving forward, it's not at my side right now, but I'm probably going to end up just siding Keldo just to have something to be able to hit in the graveyard if you do get your deck milled. So that's something that's also just really important to think about, is just you always want something in there. Also, this card's really good to discard off of things like the Clockwork Knight, and then there's a lot of other ways that you can go ahead and send this to the graveyard in the build that I will show you, alongside just linkage by itself is also a really good way to send this to the graveyard, and another way to really be able to net some more value, get some more draws, because you really want to get to the cards that are really going to shut down your opponent, like Different Dimension Ground. I think that card's still going to be your #1 way to go ahead and shut down the Tier Limit deck. There is another card that we'll talk about here in a little bit that I think is not really that good against Tier Limit, because it does hurt you way more, and we'll talk about that once we get to it. So even talking about cards like Avramax, this card's absolutely fantastic against Tier Limit, and we've been seeing a really big decline in Underworld Goddess and Borreload in the extra deck, so this card just becomes even better at the moment. Just overall, needing a card that you can leave in the board and Striker to just live through the turn is really important, and Avramax just has to be that card for now. Of course, even Droplet not being too prevalent, Dark Ruler's not really seeing that much play, especially like in Tier Limit right now. It's not really used. It's not really good against Tier either. It's only being really utilized against the Fluana Rees deck, but at the same point, we're just seeing a lot more back row blowouts right now because of the fact that Macro D-Fissure are around. So I think that Avramax is overall one of the safest options to go into, and it's also just really strong in general. Being able to get into a lot of damage and then also protect the rest of your board. If you're in a situation where you are playing like Droplet per se, you could put up your Kagari, get a card back, go in Shizuku, get a search, and then if your opponent commits to the board, you can go ahead and Droplet, send your Shizuku, negate their monster, and then you also have all your spells live. So there's a lot of different things that you can do while Avramax is on the board, and I like this card a lot. So I definitely think that it's mandatory to run right now. The other card that I think is mandatory to run right now is going to be Lightning Storm. This card is absolutely phenomenal. Usually against Fluana Rees, I recommend Twin because you can hit the trap in the standby phase, but lately it's 2 cards that are set with maps, so you're kind of 50-50 on the back row. This card checks for Storm, Macro, it checks for the Advent, and checks for the trap. There's so many different cards that you have to look for in the back row right now, because D-Fissure is just going to be live, but I really don't think that card matters too much. You just play more copies of Ray because you have so many copies of Linkage and what have you too, and then your spells don't get banished anyway, so like it's annoying, but D-Fissure isn't that bad, and then Macro is just awful to play against. So Lightning Storm just to be able to deal with everything. And then of course if they go ahead and summon out Avian, it doesn't really matter either, because if you're on Tactics, you just have so many different ways that you can go ahead and play into the board. So I do think that Lightning Storm overall is relatively mandatory in the main or side. This card is absolutely phenomenal. Even against Tier Limit, being able to bait out crime pretty early on is really important. The Dweller never really mattered, so if they don't know what you're playing and you're going blind second and they Dweller you, it's just going to be overall a very good situation for you. So I think this card in general just should be in your main or side. I think these are like $9 or $10 now, so it's definitely a lot better than what they have been, so definitely recommend going ahead and picking up a playset of this. Moving on though, Ghost Bell. This is going to be another card. I know that I'm saying this for a few cards now, but this is also relatively mandatory in the deck now. These are cards that you just need to play, because if you're playing against any deck right now with Bistros, or if they have Keldo and Mudora, these are cards that are just GGs against Strikers. So you need answers for them, especially if you go to summon back Ray, you don't have access to Ray otherwise, and they have a Bistro. Like, you need Bell. So Bell is also really important against the shufflebacks, because you don't want your spell count to be deleted. And that happened to me the other day. I was playing Striker and I had 9 spells in the graveyard, and then poof, they were all gone. So it's something that's really important that you have some kind of way to stop those effects from going off. Meister could be played, but I think that it's fine just playing 3 Bell, but this is still something that you really have to play. But moving from Bell onto Necrovalley, I think this card's very solid, but it's also not that good in Striker. So the reason being, though, is if you're playing against Tier Limit and you have this card, and if Tier is just milling cards to have a graveyard at the time, because they have like Perlerino, and they load up like the Keldo, Mudora, like, unless you get to a Soul Drain to get rid of Necrovalley and then have the Soul Drain live, the second you get rid of Necrovalley, their whole grave is just live again. So it's really unfortunate, because Striker really needs a way to be able to maintain card advantage and have more than your opponent. So you need multi-rule to go off multiple times. You need Kagaru to resolve that back cards like Engage. And it's really rough when the second you pull off Necrovalley from the board, your opponent just has Keldo, Mudora, they have the Perlerino pop, like so many different things that they can do now. And this is something where Necrovalley and Striker, it just hurts Striker too much to play this card. And I know that a lot of people are trying to play this style, but I just really don't think that it's that good. Because if you have linkage and you have a link monster, when you activate linkage, you have to get rid of your link monster because you need an EMZ zone. So the only way that you can linkage away your Necrovalley is if you have nothing in your EMZ, which is also a rough situation to be in. Unless you're going Area 0, send your link monster, and then activating Necrovalley, but at that point it just seems too late to activate Necrovalley, right? Like, that should be the first card on the board. So that means the only way that you realistically get rid of your link at that point is going to be multi-roll. So there's a lot of different ways that you can utilize this card, but at the same point, I feel like it's just going to hurt you way more than it hurts your opponent, even though it does shut off a lot of their engine. The second this card leaves the board, their entire grave is live and Bistrols are live. So it's just a really rough card to play right now. There's a lot better options out there. Looking into the build, though, that I think is going to be really spicy moving into the format. So this is my personal list right now. Main decking 3 of the DDG. I have the 2 Souls, 2 Illusion, 1 of the Preparation of Rites. I think that this is really strong because you really want to be able to get as many draws as possible. So again, going back to like the Adventure Engine with the draw power and being able to get into your cards like your Different Dimension Ground, really impactful. This is something where you can even consider running some other cards, maybe like 2 Trap Tricks in the main as well, if you really want to be able to get to this card efficiently. But overall, being able to put up a board in Striker versus like just your typical like back row plus Shizuku. Because another thing you gotta realize is there's so many back row blowouts going in the sideboards right now. Like, a lot of people's sideboards are literally 15 cards for Fluenderies, and that just like overall is really bad for Striker at the moment. So you need to be able to put up a board. So being able to have like the Adventure Engine with a Griffin and having like Illegal Knight in hand potentially, because Illegal Knight against Tier is also just insane. Having chainable back row like the Different Dimension Ground, also very important. These could equally just be like a Soul Drain too, so consider that as well. Overall, having like the Metal Foes Fusion too, to be able to send off of like your linkage, your Fateful Adventure, your multi-rule, your Area 0, even off of your souls to go pitch this, draw 2, and then shuffle back, draw 1. You're getting that spell count engraved really fast. You're able to get a ton of draws. You're really able to put up a board. I am citing Soul Release. I think the card's overall very good because it does target 5 cards to banish. Either your opponent has to banish both Keldo and Mudora to put back all the cards so they don't get banished, or they have to use like Keldo and shuffle back their Mudora and other cards, and then they're just cleared out of the graveyard for the time being, so at least you can do your plays and have Soul Release be like the first spell in your graveyard. So I think this card just has a lot of promise in the format. It's very good. In my extra deck, you also see that I'm playing 4 Charmers. I'm playing Lina, Area, I'm playing Dark, and Asa. Those cards are really strong, and again, just another way to get into your Avermax. And then I do play Access Code as well because it's just a lot better against a lot of like the rogue decks. So I think in general, you just want want to see as many ways to Charmers as possible, because there's so many different things that you can reborn in the graveyard right now, so that you can go ahead and reborn something, normal summon, or like special summon a Souls, or even like a token, and then go into like an IP and then go into Avermax. So overall, I think that the build's really effective right now, and there's just so much draw power. It's just another build that really does allow you to play the game. And then if you are forced to go second, like, you can just go second, which is also really cool. Because if you break the board and then you set up like a DDG, you're in a really good position. So this is why I really like this a lot. The other way that I was thinking about mixing up the build a little bit was cutting like the Illegal Knight, cutting like the Preparation of Rites, and then I was thinking about cutting a couple other cards, like maybe like one linkage, and just looking at a couple spots that we can make for the Bestial package. And of course, the Bestial cards just make your going first board even crazier if you have those on top of the board. So this is something else that if you find room for it, you definitely can. I think that Bell is just too mandatory to not run. That's why I couldn't cut the Bell here. But I do think overall having the Bestials in the deck are also going to be even stronger, because not only is your board going to be annoying to deal with because you have like the Griffin, you have some back row, you have your Shizuka on board with like a full setup, and then you also just have like Bestials in hand. That just seems like something that's really hard to play through at that point. So for me, I think that it's going to be overall very strong to go ahead and play cards like the Bestials. You can play like Droplet too in here if you want to cut down like even the adventure package to like 2 of the Enchantress, and you can even play like 2 Magma, 1 Druid, and play like 3 Droplet if you just want cards to play when your main monster zone is full. So there's a couple different things to think about here, but overall I'm very happy with the list right now. I think that in testing has come out very well as far as the gameplay and the interaction versus tier. I think that having the Illegal Knight in hand is just overall very strong as well. Returning cards, not really getting rid of them by card effect and putting them in the graveyard to get more activations, and also just being able to target up to 2 is pretty insane. I've also just been able to use this card to go into Dark, of course, which is equally just amazing. So overall, the list is performing very well right now, and I definitely want to hear what you think about it down below in the comments section. Let me know if you try it out and how it works out for you, because so far so good. If you haven't joined my Discord, Twitch, Twitter, or Instagram, definitely go ahead and do so. And if you want a coaching session or a Metafy, definitely go ahead and let me know on Discord. We'll have a conversation about it and see which sessions for you. Hope that everyone has a wonderful night, and I'll catch you all in the next video. Thank you.